There is a sound people in old Japan feared more than any scream. Not thunder, not a voice, a soft rattle, like teeth, somewhere in the dark. By the time you heard it clearly, it was already standing over you. They believed the dead who were never buried didn't rest. They believed the forgotten came back, not as one ghost, but as thousands, pulled into a single body of bone. This is the story of the thing Japan built from its own dead. Picture a village at night, centuries ago. No electricity, no road out. Just rice fields, fog, and the black space between the houses. People went to bed early here, not because they were tired, because the dark outside was not empty. Someone is walking home late, maybe from a neighbor, maybe from the fields, and they stop because they hear it, a faint rattling in the air, dry and light, like teeth tapping together, far away. They turn, nothing. They look up, nothing. And that is the worst part. Because in the old belief, the sound never came from where you looked. It came from above, and it never warned you in time. By the time you heard it clearly, it had already chosen you. Think about what that means for the stories. No one ever described escaping it. No one ran home and told what they saw. Every version of this legend comes from people who were not there, who only found what was left in the morning. So how do you build a monster no survivor ever described? You build it from absence, from the empty sandal in the field, from the neighbor who simply never came back. And slowly, the fear stops being about the sound and starts being about the ground itself, because these villages were built on something, and the people knew it. They knew what was buried out there in the dark, and they were terrified it had not stayed buried. Here is the part of the story that isn't a legend. Japan starved. Not once, not briefly. In the Edo period, famine came back like a season. The Tenmei famine in the 1780s. The Tenpo famine, 50 years later. Whole villages emptied. Not abandoned, emptied. And when that many people die at once, something breaks down. Not the food supply, the funerals. Because in Japan, how you were buried mattered. The rites, the prayers, the names spoken by family. That wasn't decoration. That was the difference between resting and not. A person buried properly became an ancestor, someone who was watched over. A person left in a ditch became something else, nameless. And in a famine, there was no one left to carry the dead. The people who would have buried you were also dying. So bodies went into pits, dozens at a time, sometimes more. No names, no stones, no one to speak for them. And then the rice grew back. The villages refilled. New houses went up over old ground. Now think about what that means. Every farmer in those fields knew what was under them, not as a rumor, as a memory. Their grandparents put them there. They were living on top of thousands of people who were never given a name. And they believed those people knew it. So the question stopped being, where are the dead? The question became, what do they want? So how does a fear become a shape? Here's what the old stories claimed. The dead who were never named didn't stay separate. Alone, one forgotten body has nothing. No voice, no strength. But put 1,000 of them in the same ground, and something changes. The belief was that their resentment pooled, collected, like water finding the low place. And eventually, it pulled them together, not into a ghost, into a body. Bones from different people, different years, different families. A skull that belonged to a farmer, a hand that belonged to a child. Fused into one thing standing over the fields where they died. The Japanese called it Gashadokuro, and this is where the legend gets specific. It was said to be invisible. until it was directly above you. You could be standing in an open field, in clear moonlight, alone, and it could already be there, 15 times your height, watching. The only warning was the sound, that dry rattle, the gachi-gachi, bone against bone, moving in the dark. And here's the detail that says the most about the people who made it. It didn't hunt for food. It didn't guard treasure. It had no purpose. It only wanted what it was owed. Not revenge on anyone specific, just to be counted. A monster built from everyone the living forgot to remember. This is where the stories stop being about a sound. The most repeated version goes like this: a village. Late. Everyone inside, doors shut, because that was the rule after dark. And then, the rattle. Close. Not distant this time. Close enough that people inside their houses stopped moving. One man opened his door. That detail survives in almost every telling, because opening the door is what you were never supposed to do. And what he saw was not hiding. It was standing in the middle of the fields, fully upright, fully visible. A skeleton the height of a temple, made of people. Not one skeleton scaled up. Look closer and you see it. Skulls in the shoulders, ribs stacked into ribs, hands built from hands, hundreds of them pressed together, holding the shape of a man. And it wasn't attacking. That's the part people always describe wrong. It was just standing there, looking down at the village, at the houses, at the fields, at the ground it came out of, as if it was counting. And here's the turn nobody expects. The stories don't end with it destroying the village. They end with it falling apart. Gashadokuro was never eternal. It burned through its own anger. And when there was nothing left, the bones came loose. And it collapsed, back into the field, back into the dirt. Which means the monster wasn't the threat. The monster was a reminder. That came, stood there, and left. So what actually happened out there? Strip the legend away, and you're left with things we can verify. Japan had mass graves. That's not folklore, that's the record. Famine, war, plague, and burial systems that collapsed under the numbers. Bones surfaced in fields for generations afterward. Farmers found them while working. Construction still turns them up today. And here's the thing about a field full of unnamed bones. There's no one to ask who they were. A grave with a stone has a person attached to it. A pit doesn't. So the people living above them had a problem with no solution. They knew someone was down there. They just didn't know who. And a fear with no name gets one eventually. That's what Gashadokuro is. Not a creature anyone caught. A shape that guilt takes when it has nowhere else to go. But the legend got one thing exactly right. And this is the part that stays with me. It said the dead didn't want to hurt anyone. They just wanted to be counted. Nobody ever proved a giant made of bones stood over a Japanese village. But the pits are real. The bones are real. And we still don't know how many people are down there. That number is not in any record. It never was.